you have an outstandingly good voice.
Thank you very much.
How old are you?
17.
I mean, that's
Hello
unbelievable.
everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the shocking story of Jonathan and Antoine. They walked onto the stage as two shy teenagers, and left as one of Britain's most unforgettable musical duos. As two timid youngsters, they took the stage and emerged as one of the most enduring musical duos in Britain. However, what appeared to be a flawless harmony on Britain's Got Talent was just the start of a much longer and more intricate tale. Behind the standing ovations, record agreements, and heartfelt performances, a subtle change occurred. After the spotlight faded, what actually transpired between Jonathan and Charlotte? Was it limits or loyalty? Notoriety, or consequences? In this in-depth analysis, we reveal the complexities that fans didn't anticipate. From the startling counsel of a judge to the sudden quiet that ensued great accomplishments, the reality is much more complex than any headline ever implied. Prepare yourselves for insights, contemplations, and a few instances that can alter your memory of this legendary pair. Because often the most profound questions are concealed by the best performances. The unlikely harmony prior to the limelight of press tours or Britain's Got Talent, Jonathan Antoine and Charlotte Jacanelli were just two kids with a passion for music who attend Chigwell, Essex's West Hatch High School. However, despite their shared love of singing, they had never collaborated before a crucial choice was made. By one of their instructors. Their music instructor, Jeanette Brown, was the educator who recognized potential in both pupils, but were unaware that pairing them for a straightforward school function would signify the start of a popular musical partnership across the country. The chance did not present itself during a school concert or test, but at the wedding of Brown himself. Desiring to engage her pupils, she requested that Jonathan and Charlotte sing "The Prayer," a stirring duet that calls for technical proficiency and emotional resonance. Later interviews revealed that neither of the prior to this, pupils had thought of each other as possible duet mates. However, when they decided to perform together, it was instantly clear that their voices, Jonathan's Charlotte's smooth, dramatic soprano and her deep operatic tenor, produced an amazing harmony. Both the children and their teacher were taken aback by the performance. Their tones suitably contrasted and enhanced one another to create a sound that was both surprising and incredibly enchanted. Years later, Jeanette Brown thought back on that day and recalled how she was pleased to have played a small role in the pairing and how it seemed natural to her right away. Of what would turn out to be a pivotal moment in their lives. It was neither a tryout nor a not really a talent scout, but a teacher's well-deserved and sincere wedding ceremony choice. Following this performance, Jonathan and Charlotte began to take things more seriously. Into the chemistry between them musically. With support from vocal coach Jenny and educators like Brown Ewington, they became a partnership after training together. This collaboration established the foundation that would help them both musically and in terms of trust when they tried out for Britain's 2012's Got Talent. Even though it would be years before they made their final attempt to get attention, this school assignment would set the stage for everything that would happen in the theater, as well as the stage's symbolic design. However, as their harmony was starting to find it suddenly, a sudden remark on live TV almost threw everything off balance. The contentious remark made by Cowell when Jonathan, Antoine and Charlotte in 2012, Jacanelli performed "The Prayer" on the stage of Britain's Got Talent, left the audience gasping for air. However, beneath the admiration and cheers was one of the most contentious events in the history of the show, Simon Cowell's direct suggestion that Jonathan should think about leaving Charlotte to seek a career on your own. Cowell, who is renowned for being brutally honest, expressed worry that, considering Jonathan's operatic prowess, Charlotte's voice would hinder him, as well as indisputable star power. Viewers were taken aback by the proposal, not just because of how nasty it was, but for the way it openly disregarded Charlotte's contribution to what was obviously a well-balanced duet. Jonathan was only 17 years old at the time, yet he didn't think twice about answer. On national television, he vehemently disagreed with Cowell's counsel, declaring that he would not leave Charlotte alone. His steadfast devotion won him over and became an immediate talking topic. Broad acclaim. Instead of parting ways, the two made progress in the tournament together, demonstrating week after week that their collaboration was not only creatively but also emotionally resilient. Sound. Their relationship, which was built on respect for one another and sincere friendship, was clear. And it gave the impression that Cowell's proposal was not only ill-advised but also premature. In hindsight, Cowell had realized that he might have been mistaken. Later on, he stated that Charlotte's voice merged with Jonathan's in a way that Cowell hadn't anticipated. Jonathan years later, he told Express.co.uk that the comment was crucial. He continued by saying that Simon was a somewhat controversial portrayal of Simon on television, although the real Simon was considerably more affectionate and encouraging to him off-camera, a bit of a darling. Their working environment is significantly more complex as a result than that tight audition suggested. Initially, following their performance, rumors included remarks on their music as well as presumptions regarding their chemistry as well. There were rumors that the two teenagers might be in a romantic relationship, which Jonathan subsequently called creepy, adding, "That gave me a barfy feeling." Their relationship had always been platonic, with Charlotte acting more like a sister and expert. In addition to defying the music mogul's advice, the moment on the BGT stage was the turning point that established the pair as artists who value authenticity, devotion, and trust as crucial in a sector lacking all three. Reaching the finals of the BGT, Charlotte Giaconelli and Jonathan Antoine joined Britain's Got Talent Season 6 as comparatively unknown teens. Charlotte was only 16 and Jonathan was 17. But their debut performance swiftly changed the public's opinion. Performing a heartfelt version of The Prayer, originally captured on camera by Celine Dion and Andrea Bocelli, and they astounded both the audience and the judges. Judge David Walliams commended the performance's distinctive fusion, while Alicia Dixon referred to it as world-class, blend Charlotte's pop-influenced clarity and Jonathan's operatic depth. Their debut wasn't only musically remarkable, it evoked strong emotions and established the mood for what would turn out to be one of the most noteworthy expeditions in BGT's history. In spite of Simon Cowell's original recommendation that Jonathan depart alone, the two remained together, and their allegiance was quickly confirmed. In they sang Lucio Dalla's dramatic and vocally demanding song, Caruso, in the semifinals. Though the performance received a lot of praise, Amanda Holden described it as amazing, and Simon initially dubious, Cowell acknowledged that the two had made the best choice by staying a pair. His reversal demonstrated how far Jonathan and Charlotte had progressed, not simply proving their detractors incorrectly while maintaining their integrity and dignity. That evening, they won the public vote, obtaining a direct pass to the championship game. In the grand finale, Charlotte and Jonathan returned to The Prayer, the tune that started it all. Their performance acted as a turning moment, whose entire circle demonstrated their progress as artists and their increased intimacy by creating for their earlier duet. Their vocals were more assured, their chemistry was more refined, and their link more obvious than before. David Walliams referred to their last performance as sensational. They were undoubtedly waiting when Simon Cowell, who had previously expressed skepticism, added, unbelievable, eagerly anticipating the great judgments. They had utterly silenced the few skeptics, not with ostentatious showmanship, but with genuine talent and respect for one another. Despite Ashley and her dog Pudsey defeating them at the last hurdle, spectators thought that Jonathan and Charlotte had actually prevailed. Their business endeavor was not a contest. Because it conveyed a story of perseverance, camaraderie, and artistic disobedience. They entered the show with a variety of questions regarding unity and being regarded as one of the most renowned and esteemed acts to ever perform on the stage of Britain's Got Talent. The attraction was found in their own bravery. The capacity to overcome skepticism from both the competitors and its detractors. Recording success. Jonathan Antoine and Charlotte Giaconelli signed a lucrative £1 million contract after their incredible run on Britain's Got Talent in 2012. $1 million recording deal with Psycho Music, Simon Cowell's label. The agreement will be revealed soon. Constituted a significant turning point for the adolescent combo and validated their commercial after the show ended. Potential. Even though Ashley and Pudsey came in first and second, Jonathan and Charlotte's vocal prowess, its emotional appeal obviously struck a chord with both the general people and business leaders. Cowell, who had first suggested that Jonathan go it alone, was now supporting the two as recording artists, demonstrating how completely they defied expectations. Together, their debut album was made available in the US. It was a month later than in the UK, in September 2012. Graham Stack, the producer, has previously collaborated with the classical crossover ensemble G4, and the album included a mix of original songs and covers. Features their iconic version of The Prayer. The album rose to the top of the charts quite fast. Debuting on the UK Albums Chart at number 5. It was widely praised. Considering its well-executed production and the performance's emotional depth, particularly considering how young the artists are. Taking advantage of their achievements, Jonathan and in October 2013, Charlotte's second album, Perhaps Love, was released. The record was originally once more a blend of pop, classical, and musical theater, but with more stand-alone tracks, suggests the potential future artistic trajectories of each vocalist. Even though Love might have retained the extremely unique harmonies, it made room for solo performances, suggesting a growing awareness of both musicians' musical identities. On the UK Albums Chart, the album peaked at number 5. Establishing their reputation as legitimate recording artists outside of the TV novelty market. Such music's universal appeal across genres and social classes was what gave it its special power. Jonathan Charlotte's West End-style clarity and operatic strength blended harmoniously, producing a crossover sound that was both accessible and somewhat complex. The records weren't only a success in sales. They highlighted music having a classical flavor and looked at it with contemporary, sentimental viewpoints. The two adolescents from Essex had been a school pair. Evolved into a recording career that was successful commercially and received critical acclaim. Just over a year ago, neither of them truly believed that their dream would come true, but it did. The 2014 split. By 2014, following two extremely popular albums, Charlotte Giaconelli and Jonathan Antoine were confronted with an unforeseen but unavoidable intersection. Even though they were well known thanks to Britain's Got Talent and had demonstrated their commercial success with albums like Perhaps Love and Together that reached the top of the charts, their creative objectives were starting to change. When it came time to talk to their label about a third album, the two soon realized that their future-focused ideas were no longer feasible with Sony Classical. In agreement. In a subsequent interview with the Evening Standard, Charlotte disclosed that they were unable to agree on a single project track. "We went to talk about our third album with Sony and sat there reviewing our catalog, attempting to reach a consensus on songs," she stated. "We realized that we couldn't agree on anything at the end of the meeting. It was a sobering point at when it became evident that their career paths were diverging. This disagreement developed from a natural process rather than any personal friction. in their identity as musicians. Having always been drawn to traditional opera, Jonathan desired to remain in that genre, but Charlotte discovered that she was drawn more and more to musical theater and vocal styles that are more modern. Instead, Sony recommended that they each pursue solo albums. It was a game-changer as well as a workable solution. The concept, although initially shocking to Charlotte, swiftly acknowledged that, "I thought, well, this puts a spanner in the works," proved to be the only practical way for them to completely pursue their individual pursuits. This change was brought about by a shared understanding rather than dispute. It would be wiser to use their skills separately. Both had taken a month, Charlotte added later, before formally announcing their separation. She described it as an emotional period. "We spent a month reflecting on it. It was emotional," she stated. "This isn't just because we don't collaborate on music, therefore it's unfortunate that we won't ever see one another again. Been on such a long road together and have always relied on one another. From teenagers to national celebrities, they have lived much of their lives together because a connection that would last forever has to be broken while parting ways." With the split came the destruction of the artistic comfort zone they had established since their initial audition. However, when they publicly acknowledged the journey, they did it with maturity and respect for one another. That led them to where they are today. Ultimately, they anticipated encountering the bleak reality that hits during their soloistic endeavors. According to Charlotte, going it alone is scarier than depressing, since it marks a fresh start following the man she has known throughout her career. Would clearly no longer be involved. Her line of reasoning reveals a highly general experience, the nervousness that comes with any artist entering the spotlight by themselves after a long period of absence. Of collaborative achievement. However, she said it was the correct thing to do, we wanted to do different things. Growing up wasn't unlike the separation, but it wasn't rejection either. Their departure for artistic purposes, it was comprehensible and highly commendable. It made it possible for them to follow their separate musical endeavors without, but even the most dignified conclusion can leave unanswered questions, particularly as fame, time, and distance begin to change the relationship. Something appeared indestructible at one point. The duo's distance. Even so, there was once a strong musical bond between Jonathan Antoine and Charlotte Giaconelli that carried them to the Britain's Got Talent finals, but time and circumstance eventually caused them to go their separate ways. Routes. Following the release of 2 successful albums together and a UK arena tour, though when Sony offered them individual record agreements in 2014, the two parted ways amicably. While they were apart, fans have long pondered the status of their personal connection after it was professionally framed. After a split. The response was given in 2017 when Jonathan was questioned on ITV's Lorraine if he continued to communicate with Charlotte. He gave a direct reaction, saying, "We don't actually get to talk a lot, but that's just the way it is." Jonathan didn't intend for his remarks to cause a disturbance, rather, they represented the reality of maturing and becoming separated, particularly beneath the harsh scrutiny of celebrity. He explained that his rigorous routine and frequent travel indicated that he didn't have much time to get in touch with even his closest pals on a regular basis. "My family arrives. They're my longevity and they're always with me," he stated, implying that his personal assistance system had changed as he adjusted to being a solo performer. Some were disappointed by this revelation. Fans who had anticipated that their relationship on stage would continue off stage, but it also brought attention to the practical difficulties in maintaining relationships in the ever-evolving entertainment sector. Despite their distance from one another, Jonathan and Charlotte have never disparaged one another. Actually, both have persisted in providing testimony on the other's behalf. Charlotte has consistently given Jonathan credit for being extremely important throughout their BGT journey, claiming that they wouldn't have arrived at it if it weren't for one another. Jonathan also recalled with nostalgia how much they achieved and the world they would create together. However, it appears like they are not conversing much, more likely as a result of jobs diversifying into new fields rather than because of some personal incompatibility are extremely uncommon and admirable in musical collaborations. Jonathan is now a well-known classical crossover performer, who is currently releasing solo albums and going on worldwide tours. Now, even though the professional lives no longer intersect, the legacy would still exist. Undamaged. Even though their life paths have changed, the magic they created on stage continues to be celebrated. Take them forward. It is quite unlikely that their tale would be excluded from records in the future because of the remarkable connection that helped them become well-liked, even though it is no longer a part of their everyday lives. The solo journeys following their 2014 professional breakup, Charlotte Giaconelli and Jonathan Antoine both set out on individual adventures that would represent their own singing prowess and passions. The following chapter for Charlotte means turning entirely in the direction of musical theatre, which she had been studying for a long time. Having attended the Before Britain's Got Talent, Charlotte attended London's arts educational schools, where she well-equipped to take on parts on stage. She started creating a stir in the theatre industry. Having participated in well-known shows such as Carousel in concert at the Royal Festival Hall, where the flair of musical theatre was effortlessly infused with her classical studies. Later, she became wider fame as a member of the original UK cast of the West End production of Heathers the Musical, where she performed as Martha Dunstock, showcasing both dramatic depth and vocal range. Her performance as Florinda in Into the Woods at the Theatre Royal further grew her career. Bath, a part that demonstrated her range in a more somber and sophisticated performing setting. Conversely, Jonathan Antoine remained firmly established in the traditional crossover market, where one may truly enjoy his powerful tenor voice. Not long after the two parted ways, Tenore, Jonathan's first solo album published under Sony Classical, shot to the top of the charts in 2014. The UK's Classical Artist Album Chart. The album included a number of arias from operas and classical songs, enabling him to independently establish himself as a vocal prodigy. It was well received by critics and made money, demonstrating that Jonathan could stand alone, but not at the expense of the kindness and compassion he had shown. With Charlotte, he released Believe, a follow-up album in 2016, which also included Italian arias with strong orchestral arrangements. This publication solidified his position as one of Britain's most talented classical musicians and broadened his global fan base. Throughout their careers, the two musicians traveled far beyond the UK stage. Jonathan in particular took to traveling abroad in the US and Canada, and one of his